Welcome into another live edition of the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Steph Sanchez and I will discuss what the best version of the 2025 49ers will be, what draft needs will they have, and why on earth is everyone still mocking Tyler Warren to the San Francisco 49ers? Stick around after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, the only podcast that is still currently hungover from a Miami trip in 49ers land. So, Steph, how are you doing today?
If you weren't going to mention it, I was going to, Jay, because, man, it sounds like you had a great weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I went for a bachelor party and everything. You know, I got back last night. You would think that I'd be fine by today, but my goodness, man, it's just not working out like that right now. But anyway, nobody cares about that. Right now, the San Francisco 49ers are less than 2-3 weeks away from the NFL draft, and it seems like, Steph, all 11 picks have to be starters and they have to be good football players off the bat because that's the way the 49ers have set themselves up. But do you think it's feasible to suspect or expect that all 11 players will need to be, year one, year two contributors? Maybe there's a few of them that may not have to start right away, but they will have to have impact right off the bat. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely need impact. We know that. They know that. It isn't realistic for all 11 picks. We're talking about day 3 guys to be day 1 starters. Like, we know that as well. And so really what I'm looking for is your early picks have to be impact players. Like, I need pick 11 to be a day 1 starter. I need pick 11 to be someone who, not even just week 1 starting, he needs to be the guy in camp. Like, OTAs. Like, we need to see it right then, right? So I'm just looking at the 49ers being risk adverse. I'm looking at them not taking on guys that maybe have spotty injury history, things like that. And so, yeah, I think that's realistic. But yeah, all 11 picks, probably not, but you could get some competitors in the back end of the draft as well. You could get good depth. I think that's what I would look for in the back half. But the first half of the draft, they need to nail. They need day 1 starters.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, obviously, I was being facetious when I said that all 11 need to be, hits. If they get something similar from last year, that's back-to-back drafts that are home runs, right?
Yeah.
And I have been seeing a little bit of pushback on last year's draft, because everyone's saying, well, yeah, you feel good about Renardo Green and all these guys, but Pooney's the only one who did it over a season. So some people still even believe that there's results that are to be determined with this draft class. I'm not one of those people. I think that Renardo Green is as good as advertised. I think Malik Mustafa in year 2 is going to be great. And we all know that we need Ricky Pearsall to step up right away this season. No more slow start to the season or anything like that. Obviously, it had nothing to do with football play early on. But, yeah, I mean, 11 picks it's almost impossible to do. If someone can hit on all 11 picks, put them in the Hall of Fame or make a movie about them. Like, not a terrible one like Draft Day, like a legit movie, like that's a biography about how this general manager hit on all 11 picks. But right now, 4 or 5 would be great. But I wanted to talk to you about some of the mocks because while I was away, I definitely was tapped in with like who's been mocking what. What is this fascination with Barron from Texas being the pick at 11 every single time? It's like I've gotten so sick of writing mock draft articles because it's the same names over and over again at 11. I think I've only seen one person say Jahad Campbell at 11, but everything is Barron or Membo or Kelvin Banks, and it's getting boring and it's getting repetitive. There's just too much time in the draft process in the lead up for people now to just make things up.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty frustrating, honestly, to see so many mocks with the same position in that position being corner, because I see corner as like the 4th, at best, the 4th need maybe that the 49ers have. Like, I don't see it as a big priority. I don't know what all these other national media guys are thinking when they keep mocking corners and Will Johnson to the 49ers at 11. Like, I don't know what they're hearing. I'm convinced John Lynch, is giving them some money under the table and saying, hey, can you mock some corners to 11 for us? Because we don't want anyone to know what we're doing. It wouldn't surprise me. I just can't make sense of corner being the one pick when there's so many other glaring, obvious needs, low-hanging fruit for these guys to use, like defensive line. Can we get more of that? Can we get more of that in these mocks? At the end of the day, I think we all know that mocks don't mean anything. In any case, like, it's still just annoying, and it doesn't make sense to me why these guys keep picking corners or Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren was the latest that we saw this morning from Thor. So yeah, I don't get it. We're all the defensive linemen.
Well, I think, okay, let me just play devil's advocate. Isn't the reason that the 49ers are kind of in the spot that they're in is that they don't draft best player available and they're drafting for like specific need? So what if Barron's higher on their board than a glaring need, right? I think, again, if Mason Graham and Barron are there at 11, I don't think there's much of a discussion. It's obviously Mason Graham. But if it's Barron and somebody that you have like these concerns with, Shamar Stewart or, Mike Green or like whatever concerns they might be, then what do? Do you just jam a defensive lineman pause in there? Or do you go with best player available? Like, that's the exercise. I think that's what people forget about mock drafts. It's just scenarios, right? This is all just scenarios. Like, it's not what you think is going to happen. It's a scenario. Like, what if this player is available to them? So I wonder if maybe, and I see the comments because it's absolutely true. Media sees Charvarius Ward gone, and they're just like, oh my God, they have a glaring need at corner. I don't think so at all. I don't think that that's the case, but I could see how casual media members who don't follow the 49ers as closely could feel like that. But I do feel like maybe if I'm playing devil's advocate, maybe this is more of a best player available strategy rather than, hey, we need a starting linebacker. Let's reach on a linebacker just because we need a linebacker.
Yeah, and I, of course, would not support them reaching for need. But I also think there will be players available in the positions that they need that are higher needs than corner that would be better as mock options. And Jay, like, the reasoning you're giving makes a lot of sense. It would make sense if I only saw like a few mocks get corner, right? And, I can explain it away with that. But like the amount that I've seen with corner, just, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. I do like Jahdae Barron. I think, Saleh would, of course, love to have his versatility again. 49ers haven't had that type of versatility since, maybe Jimmy Ward. I mean, you have some of that with Lenoir as well, but, just someone who could play every spot, in the secondary. Barron would give you that. So that one I see a little bit more. Will Johnson, I'm not saying that these wouldn't be good picks. It's just that I don't understand why everyone thinks those are like the only possibilities for the 49ers when there are going to be some defensive linemen there. There are going to be some edge rushers available there. I wonder, though, if, I think we're seeing a lot of some of the edge guys and some of the interior defensive linemen, they have like character issues attached to them, right? So like, that could be why some of those guys are dropping. Right. Was it Walter Nolan in God, I'm forgetting the dude's name. Mel Kiper. Mel Kiper's mock, his latest mock. He has him in the second round.
Yeah.
Like not even in the first. So I think that tells you the seriousness of how teams are perceiving Walter Nolan, that he's not even predicting Nolan to be drafted in the first round anymore based on his mock. So I think that's fair as well. Maybe that's part of it. So then really, like, if that's the case, it's starting to become a wild card at 11. But I still think linebackers a bigger need than corner. I still think edge, interior defensive lineman, bigger need. So Yeah, it's interesting. And I wouldn't touch a tight end at pick 11, or God forbid, a trade up for Tyler Warren to pick number 5, as Thor has him doing.
Absolutely not. But I do want to say this too, and this is another interesting part. Whatever 49ers fans' board is for the players that they want selected, toss that shit out, because the 49ers their board looks nothing like who we want ever. How many people wanted Ricky Pearsall in the first round? Point them out. There must be dozens of you. Nobody, nobody cares what we think. So we're going to get upset with how the 49ers board is, but their board is going to be completely different than ours. And it has to do with character concerns. Can we bring this person in the building? All we do is watch the tape. We don't talk to these people. We don't know the background. We don't know the medicals. Now, sometimes it feels like the 49ers don't know the medicals either, given who they drafted at times. But these are all the things that change up people's boards. So I love these exercises. I love the discussions. And I think it's interesting to figure out why people are so enamored with certain players, and it shows how much research and homework you've done. But the San Francisco 49ers don't give a shit who we want. So, and their board is going to look way different. Like, if we think they want Will Campbell at 11 and Will Campbell's there, Will Campbell's probably like the 10th best prospect on their board. And they're just like, we're not even considering him at 11. Like, that's the part that I think we find is a little frustrating when we go through these sort of exercises, is because we're like, yeah, that's a need. But does that mean that the 49ers actually have them on their board very highly? And that's the part that's going to be frustrating when we go through this and we start to really look back at it. Again, Jalen Hurd over Terry McLaurin and all these other players that you had over other people, right? Like Solomon Thomas, number 3, over all these people. That's just how their board's going to be. And I think we have to learn to live with that, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I guess my thing is, I don't want them to reach. They always do. The reason that we see it as a reach is because we look at every player as being available to them. They are only looking at the players on their board available to them, and that list is way more pared down than the list we see in our big board, right? So that's part of it. I mean, that always goes into the perception of a player being a reach or not, and versus consensus and all that. But I do think you kind of have to earn being able to go best player available. And I don't think the 49ers are just at that point right now. I don't think they're really at a point to go best player available with pick 11. I think they have obvious needs that they have to draft. I guess fortunate for them, they have almost too many needs that, like, whatever they pick at 11 will address one of them, right? But again, I just don't see corner being that one. Tight end, definitely not. But we'll see how the chips fall on draft night. I'm sure there'll be some surprises as well. And I still think trading back is even a possibility for the 49ers, but based on the things I've seen people say about this draft class, it's like a lot of teams don't have that many first round guys on their board. So that could change some things up. I can't imagine a lot of teams being willing to trade up unless at 11 there's a quarterback that someone wants to reach for. Right.
That's the only way that I feel really good about this, is if that board starts to get wonky and someone loves Jackson Dart and somehow Jackson Dart is like a top 8 pick for whatever the hell reason, that's when you're a really good football player is going to fall into your lap. And one way or another, you can't even screw that one up.
Yeah. So it could happen. We never know how these things go. There's almost always a surprise at some point. So yeah, hopefully for the 49ers, it's in the top 10 and, a position of need for the 49ers falls on their lap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing is that's another thing about mock drafts. It's like when you're talking about mock drafts and you're talking about like, oh, is this going to happen? It's all about possibilities. That's all it is. So half the time, not even half the time, 95% of those mocks are going to be tossed out. How many people it's almost like we just finished the NCAA tournament. Where's your perfect bracket at? You know why your perfect bracket isn't there? Because it doesn't exist, right? And there's no way to think about that way. So, yeah, 100%. Who Who's a Philly fan? That's crazy. People just say anything. Like, I swear to God, people just say anything. It's fine. I got a little time, so don't play with me. Anyway, Tyler Warren, this is the part that is kind of annoying to me and more than anything. We talked about going into this season. The offense is fine, right?
Yeah.
George Kittle's returning. Christian McCaffrey's returning. Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall are going to start. While Brandon Ayuk gets ready, gets back. The offensive line is going to be the same, for better or worse, however you feel about that. The 49ers are essentially returning everybody, and Tyler Warren at 11. Now, that is going to be an egregious misuse of picks because your offense is largely intact. And we've talked about it. The offense has a chance to do the funniest thing and carry this team while the defense might be a little bit behind. So Tyler Warren to 11, that's either just somebody who is envisioning some sort of 2 tight end dynamic set that doesn't exist, because when 2 tight ends are on the field is when they want to run the football. Or you just want Kyle Shanahan to have a shiny toy. So I really don't understand this one, Steph. You're a lot smarter than I am. Can you explain it to me?
Unfortunately, I don't understand it either. I mean, honestly, like if Tyler Warren is the 49ers pick at 11, we got bigger problems. Like, to me, that would indicate, oh God, like, is something wrong with Kittle? Like, are the negotiations not going well? That's where my head would go. And especially with the Trey McBride, extension that he just got, maybe that threw a wrench in the 49ers plans and the 49ers negotiations with Kittle, that now they feel like they need Tyler Warren just in case. And that would just be horrible, in my opinion. Again, with all the other needs, you mentioned it, like, I don't see offenses being an issue right now for the 49ers. So to throw, and it sounds kind of silly, right? Because he's a very talented player. So like we're kind of almost complaining about a very talented player being added to the offense, but we're doing it because we just feel like there's so many other needs on this team that would have a far greater impact. Again, in year one, day one starters. Would Tyler Warren be a day one starter if he's the pick at 11?
No.
So that's the problem right there. Not complaining about getting talent added. It's just about wanting those impact day one starting players. Tyler Warren would not be it in this offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, if you're selecting Tyler Warren is to replace George Kittle, this grandiose idea of 2 tight ends running routes for the San Francisco 49ers, it's not going to happen. Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. Every other tight end that gets brought in is a blocker. So let's throw that away. Tyler Warren's an offensive weapon, not a blocker. But the only thing that you can say about the whole 2 tight end set is hopefully this blocker can help George Kittle run more routes, which it was nice to hear Kyle Shanahan talk about at the winter meetings. That's good as well, too. But I really don't understand this. Almost to your point about the 11th pick being best player available, that's a luxury pick. And you haven't earned that. You have not earned that yet because you have too many things that you need to address now with day one guys. Not with guys that might be good later on, not with guys that, need a year right away. So pick 11 has to be an impact right away player. Tyler Warren wouldn't start over George Kittle right away. And there's going to be two tight end sets. Not going to happen. So I don't understand what the thought process is. Again, I think it boils down to people just wanting to see something that just Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to do, which is run 2 tight ends. And 2, they just want Kyle Shanahan to get a nice, shiny new toy, which would be Tyler Warren. So yeah, I don't understand this one either. I see other teams with bigger need with him as a need, right? Mm-hmm. Indianapolis comes to mind. That's a little bit later, like, in the draft, like, maybe even the Jets, because we know the Jets are dumb at times. The Jets maybe, would be in on somebody like that. Huh? Oh, yes. At times. Hey, look, I mean, they drafted, Breece Hall. That's not dumb. That he's a good player. They drafted Garrett Wilson. That's not dumb. At times, they're dumb, though. At times,
apparently they want to trade away Breece, but I digress. But
no, thank you. No, thank you.
No, thank you. But yeah, I mean, I believe in Thor's mock, at least, he kind of mentioned that
It's a trade up, isn't it? To 5?
It's 5, yeah. But he said, didn't he also mention? Yeah. I've been told they've been looking into the possibility of a flashy move up in round 1 for skill help. Who the hell is that coming from? Again, I think I'm just convinced John Lynch is whispering in people's ears, or the people in that building are trying to smokescreen season, man. And Mayoko has even mentioned Tyler Warren over and over again as well, to the point I'm convinced it's the only prospect he knows exists. And I just don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. For the only thing it is to me is smokescreen. So
yeah.
No way, man.
I mean, look, I love Thor's work. That's my guy, by the way. Shout out to Thor Nystrom. I love his work. Yeah, he's a great guy at everything. If he's saying something, it's not because he's not hearing it. It's just who's he hearing it from, and how much validity does it have, right? Somebody comes and tells me something, but I don't think it makes any sense. I'm not just gonna run with it and say, "Hey, I heard, the 49ers are looking to trade for that." You can hear things and still sift through it and say, just because someone told me this doesn't make it true, right? But I think, again, it just neglects the things that the 49ers need to address right away. So, yeah, I'm out on the whole Tyler Warren thing. And moving up to pick 5 for Tyler Warren, that would really, really, really make me upset. Think about what you could have possibly at 5, right? Okay, so let's do it, right? Cam Ward, I think Abdul Carter goes 2nd. I think Travis Hunter goes 3rd. The Patriots at 4 would have whatever pick. So, whatever it is that they would, maybe Membo, Will Campbell, somebody. Look what you're sitting at with 5. If you want Mason Graham at 5, you can have him. You can have, the idea that you would move up to 5 and spend draft capital to move up 6 spots for Tyler Warren, that would piss me off. That would piss me off a lot. Especially when it feels like Graham's not going to make it to 11. But if you feel that convicted, there's that word, drink, then you can move up to 5 and get him if you like him like that. And that's good. That's the part is I don't need you half-stepping 49ers. If you love a player, if you love him and you feel good about moving up to go get him because you feel convicted. But the thing is moving up to 5 for a luxury pick like Tyler Warren, that'll piss me off. That'll really, really piss me off, Steph.
Yeah, I think it pissed a lot of us off, honestly. So hopefully that's not what they do. Hopefully this is all just a smoke screen. But yeah, I think they're going to have way better options for them at 11. And certainly if they did want to move up, they would have a lot of options available to them, especially if what we're saying, if there is a bit of a run on quarterbacks early in those first 10 picks, things open up for the 49ers to be able to get talent at positions of greater need. So that's what we're hoping for on draft night.
Okay. So, man, I just need this draft to happen. It's just, that's the only part of the process with the draft is there's too much time from the combine
we go back
all the way down. Yeah. And it's going to get wonkier as it goes along, right? Who could forget? I have it on good authority. Will Levis will be taken in the top 5. And fine, whatever, right? You want to say that. But I did want to talk about some of our favorite prospects because it did come out today. And this is a good segue to lead into, your top 30 visit list and everything. And I think a lot of people have top 30 visits messed up. They don't understand what it necessarily means. And this is a good chance for Steph to explain.
Every year.
Yeah, I know. The top 30 is kicking everybody's ass. Look, wide receiver Kyle Williams visited the Tennessee Titans and the New York Jets today. Steph Sanchez react because he's a 49er. I decided he's a 49er, pal.
Kyle Williams, our sweet prince, needs to be on the Niners. We've been advocating for that for quite some time. And look, the crazy thing is, Jay, when I first started watching him, I saw him as a day 3 guy. Oh, he could be huge value. He could be a steal. His draft stock has risen quite a bit because people are seeing what we saw and they're like, oh, this dude is nice. And so suddenly now you're talking day 2, possibly even second round for Kyle Williams. My question is is it feasible that the 49ers would address wide receiver that early? Because look, I mean, Jawan Jennings, he's not going to be extended forever unless they of course extend him this offseason, to be seen. Brandon Ayuk, of course, could be ready by midseason, maybe week 1, but I also think like in April, you got to be prepared for him to not be ready week 1. So hopefully you address wide receiver at some point. And what I'm looking for specifically, Jay, and we've mentioned it here, what you got to look for is a specific role that you're trying to fill with the wide receiver in this class. I'm looking for an X player. I'm looking for a player who can separate, that I don't need to scheme him into separation. Guy who can win with his routes. Speed doesn't hurt either. Well, so, I think Kyle Williams is one of those options for the 49ers that would fill the specific role that I think the 49ers are going to be needing this season.
Runs a 4.4, 16 touchdowns last season for Washington State, man. Just when he pops on the tape in terms of just, you don't have to be an X's and O's guy to know when a guy has a little bit of extra juice. And it's all there on the film right there. So again, he crept into the second round. I think Chris Sims had him as like the number 3 wide receiver on his board, which is high praise. And he said day 2, day 1 contributor, right? Like you pick him in day 2, but day 1 he's already hooping. And that's kind of where I am with the wide receiver position. It's not a top heavy group, right? Like, everybody loves Ted McMillan. Obviously Matthew Golden is getting a lot of buzz. I think the real ballers are going to be in the middle rounds, and they're going to be a little bit later on. Those are going to be where you get the contributors, especially when you correlate it to the value that you didn't have to put up all that, draft capital to get somebody who can jump in and be good right away. Kyle Williams, Jalen Noel, Jalen Noel. I'm sorry. Let me make sure I get it right. Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins and Jack Beck and like the Trey Harris is another one. Like those are going to be the guys that really return all the value because they're going to put up numbers like they were picked in the first round, but they're not going to be taken in the first round. And that's when smart GMs get praised. And that's when you start to see things get unlocked when you have guys like that at the middle to the later rounds that you get that can contribute like first round picks.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think that's what they're going to be looking for with wide receivers value, right? Because like we've been saying, we don't see that as their biggest need, but it's something they do need to draft. And they almost always draft a wide receiver. So, my preference is day 2, day 3, and there's some intriguing talent there as well. This is a deep cut, but I mentioned him on my show. Day 3 guy that I really like is Jackson Meeks out of Syracuse. I think he definitely checks the boxes of kind of what we're describing here as well. And I think he'd be a value pick, someone who can, earn some reps through competition and things like that. Kyle Williams, maybe not an option really in day 3 anymore. So there's other guys you could get. Dante Thornton is a speed guy they can get later. Jalen Royals is someone who I think fits what 49ers Kyle Shanahan would like. Just someone who can give you a lot of different options in this offense. You mentioned Jalen Noel. That's how you pronounce his last name? Okay.
Noel,
I'm learning, I'm learning things here. Jack Beck or Betch. Beck.
Yes.
Is it Betch or Beck? Whatever one it is, he's a Niner.
It's Dog.
Yeah, it's Jack Dog.
Jack Dog.
That's the kind of dude I need on this team. And I don't know where he's going to go either. Probably day 2, I would imagine. But there's going to be options. The John Lynch seemed to really take a liking to Stanford wide receiver Alec Iomanner. He's going to be at 49ers local pro day tomorrow as well. So, get extra eyes on him. I don't know if he's going to participate, but the fact that he's there is, a big deal. He'll get to meet some coaches and whatnot. So there'll be options. Obviously, there's some guys that they like. But again, I think who they bring in is going to be of a specific role, I think.
All right. This is your time, Steph. Top 30 visits. And I want to dispel a narrative real quick. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this. Just because the 49ers met with somebody doesn't mean that they'll draft them. Just because the 49ers didn't meet with someone doesn't mean that they won't draft him. Ricky Pearsall never had one of these visits. A lot of players, Mike McGlinchey, nobody met with him. But I need you to explain to everyone about the top 30 visits, because it seems like people believe it's only 30 visits and, they draft players that they bring in. When you bring in that many people, you might draft one or two of them. You can't draft all 30, you can't do that. So I don't understand it's kicking people's asses right now. This whole thing, it is just like people are just having a tough time understanding. Steph, explain to us, because you're the master of draft visits and top 30 visits. Explain how this works.
Look, I'll start with this one. I hear it every year, like, oh, this list doesn't matter. This person didn't meet with the 49ers, so this list means nothing. On average, and I've looked back at all the 49ers previous drafts since Kyle and John Lynch have, been with the 49ers, they've drafted 3 30-visit players every year since 2017, all but 2 of those years. So if you can find me a better indicator, a better prediction model, to find out who the 49ers may possibly end up drafting, find it. Otherwise, this is the best one that we have. And it is, I think with the sample size that we have, a pretty damn good one. The other misconception with the 30 visits, and yes, some people also refer to them as top 30 visits, which I think there's always an argument over naming it top 30 visits versus 30 visits. I think because when you say top, it gives the indication or feeling that those are the 49ers top 30 players on the board. And that is not true at all. Every NFL team can bring in up to 30 players for a visit. There are exceptions to that. Like if a player is within, I think, like 50 miles or something, if they're local to the Bay Area, it would not count as a visit. If that player came in, it wouldn't count towards their 30. So that's one thing. And again, it's not their top 30 players. In fact, you'll often see day 3 potential priority free agents that they bring in for visits as well. Last year, Evan Anderson, who was one of the 49ers undrafted free agents, he was a 30 visit. And so there's many different reasons why players are brought in for visits that aren't strictly just, we really want to draft this player. Sometimes it's just checking a box on their list, checking medicals, checking character. I mean, there's a couple guys on this list, right, that have character concerns. Mike Green, Walter Nolan. And so the 49ers are doing their due diligence by bringing these guys in, seeing how, they react in a setting when they're getting grilled potentially by the 49ers or any other team. Omar Norman-Lott has had, questions over his injury history. I think I've heard, chronic knee concerns with Norman-Lott. So it's an opportunity to get him to see their, medical professionals in their building and see how he checks out. Right. So there's many different reasons why a player is brought in for 30 visits. It isn't always just, we definitely want to draft this player. Sometimes it could just be, we want to make sure whether or not we want to draft this player or not. Like it could just be that final check of narrowing down that list for them. And then also, of course, like I mentioned, the PFAs, it's nice to build relationships with potential priority free agents after, because once the draft ends, teams are calling agents and trying to get these guys in ASAP and get them to agree to sign with them. And they're getting several calls. So it's nice if you've already built that connection with a certain player. So I think the 49ers do try to do that with some of those 30 visits as well for like UDFA day 3 kind of guys. And just a final note I'll make here. I was able to interview Jalen Conyers, Texas Tech tight end, on my channel. I've been doing prospect interviews, but that's, he was one of the 49ers 30 visits. So make sure you guys check that out if you haven't yet on my channel. Shameless plug there. But as always, you guys could see my draft tracker and see who the 49ers are meeting with, visiting with. We got 10. We got 10 right now. There's definitely going to be more. Probably going to be happening next week. They like to do the majority of their visits, not all of them, but the majority of their visits all happen on the same day. They take them to Top Golf. So we'll probably see that, see how they do in competition. I don't know. But yeah, so we'll get more reports here in like the next week or so on who the 49ers are bringing in.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about evaluating every prospect, is because we literally just talked about how the draft is unpredictable. And you don't want to get caught in a position where the guy that you like is all the way, and is gone. And then you're choosing between 3 and 4 players that you didn't even look at. You didn't evaluate at all. And that's the thing, is when you're looking through all these players, you have to do your due diligence. It's convicted and due diligence. Everybody has to take a drink after we say. But you have to, because if you get caught in a position where the player that you wanted on your board is there and you're choosing between 4 and 5, you don't want to be like, well, we didn't even look at these guys like at all. We don't know anything about them. And then you're stuck, in that position. So it's important to do all those things. You just don't want to get caught without knowing, anything about the player. But it is good info because, again, you can't draft all 30 players, obviously. So it doesn't mean that it's all of them. But, when you have that many players that have been drafted and Steph's done the history, then it is a good indicator, right? And then there's always going to be that player that nobody meets with, that nobody even knows about, right? Like that there's no clue, and it comes out of nowhere that he signed. So I think this is great information. Steph does great work. Make sure you check out that interview as well too. But I'm glad that you cleared up some of the misconceptions of top 30, because it makes it seem like those are just the 30 people that are on the board. And I think that was the most important thing you said. But they're people that they need to look at and evaluate, even if right now they're not high on their board, because maybe that changes, right? In that one meeting, maybe they move them up, maybe they move them down, right? I know this is the worst person to probably bring up, but I remember the first Senior Bowl that I ever covered. Matt Rule said that he got in an elevator with a prospect, and he was in the elevator for 15 to 20 seconds. He said after that prospect got out, and it was a top-end prospect, he said after that prospect got out, he took him completely off his board. I don't know what this young man said or how you could have ruined this in 15 to 20 seconds, but that's exactly what you're talking about when you're meeting with these people. We just look at the tape. We just look at the fit. We don't know the character. We don't know what they're like. And character concerns come in all sorts of, forms and fashions, whether it's, your lack of hustle, your immaturity, or even worse, something that has to do with, off the field stuff or whatever. That's what makes that whole idea of like, oh, there's character concerns. It's a spectrum of things that could be, the issue. It doesn't always have to be criminal. Doesn't always have to be immaturity. So yeah, that's why you have to do all of these things as well too. So yeah, Steph, as always, great work, man. Thank God for you, because where would we be tracking all these things?
I don't know, probably on a bunch of websites with a bunch of ads on them or something.
All right. So we're getting close to the end here, but I do want to ask you this. Your gut feeling right now. Let's do this. Let's do this exercise. Let's power rank the 49ers needs in the draft. Right now.
All right.
1 through 5.
Yeah. I like this. I've done this exercise because like on my show last week, I went through position and position. It was like, okay, like, ooh, these are the ones they really need help with. I could tell you, we looked at interior defensive linemen. There were only 4 players listed. I was like, to me, Jay, that's the biggest need for the 49ers, interior defensive line. That's not to say that it needs to be pick 11. I just mean they need the most interior defensive linemen. They need at least 2 out of this draft, at least.
And wide 9, the idea of the wide 9 is to get edge rushers one-on-ones, and the defensive tackles have to be space eaters, right? And they have to be people that are going to hold up blocks. And the 49ers haven't had a defensive tackle that isn't just a space eater, right? Like, I think that's people's issue with the wide 9 is like, the role is simply just, hey, just occupy some blocks for us real quick, as opposed to like go out there and wreck the game, like get in there and wreck the game, right? Like, so I think but again, when you look at the players, I think the 49ers thought they addressed it with Javon Hargrave. Obviously didn't work out. They thought that Javon Kinlaw would be that guy. Obviously didn't work out. But the 49ers get one of those defensive tackles that isn't just a guy who's occupying blocks. My goodness,
Right.
think about what this will look like for everybody else. So I agree with you. I think defensive line, in particular, interior defensive line is number one. What's your second one?
So it's kind of a tie between linebacker and edge. I thought it was interesting that I guess Kyle Shanahan mentioned that they do see Yetur Gross-Matos as being a potential starter for them, and he has that inside-outside versatility. But it's interesting to note that because it could potentially make it so they don't feel edge or an interior defensive lineman is as big a need as we might be looking at right now. So I think the loss of Drake Greenlaw is not being mentioned enough by people. I mean, I think we know how big of a loss that was, but when Kyle Shanahan was asked specifically about D Winters, he was complimentary of him, but he immediately went into saying hopefully we bring in some competition. and I think that tells you right there, they see linebacker as a huge need. So for me, it's kind of like 2A, 2B, linebacker edge, depending on who's there and what position of the two you want to prioritize.
I think right after the draft, the 49ers get on the phone and they call CJ Mosley's agent right away. I understand, 33 years old, right? Was hurt last year. 2 years before, and in consecutive years, over 1,000 snaps, had a career high defensive grade with Robert Saleh, a career high coverage grade. I think there's your competition at linebacker, depending on how it goes. I don't think the 49ers are comfortable with just D Winters, Tatum Bethune, and somebody else from the draft. I just don't. I don't think that they're comfortable with that. And
Right.
say what you want, CJ Mosley will be there and he'll be like a safety net. But it kind of directly contradicts the message that the 49ers have been sending about older players and getting younger. But at the same time, there is a track record with this team of, yeah, we have a young guy that we like, but we don't all the way just believe in, right? I feel like there's examples of both, right? The 49ers clearly wanted to get Hufanga on the field. And when it was his time, he went right on the field. There was no question, right? No questions asked. You throw him out there. But then there's other times where it's yeah, we have a guy that we kind of like, and it's D Winters is who I'm talking about. But we're not prepared to just have him be the guy because then it gets really thin and it gets hairy. So I think right after the draft, when they figure out what they do, I think they are going to draft another linebacker. When they see how it shakes out, they're going to probably make a call to CJ Mosley based on the fact that, one, Robert Saleh knows him. Two, he's a vet, and he'll be likely very inexpensive because the 49ers aren't going to throw a bag, and they're not throwing bags at anybody. So I think they want D Winters to work out, but they don't feel super convicted in D Winters working out, right? They've gotta put a safety net under it just because he struggles from series to series to stay on the field. Imagine over 17 games. I think that's really where I'm at, with this issue. And if it is CJ Mosley, it contradicts what they've been doing with the older players. And maybe, and I think it was the Jacksonville Jaguars general manager, the guy who worked with the Rams when they drafted all the young guys, they said we didn't bring in any vets because we didn't want to get them to get in the way of the development process for them. I wonder if that's exactly what they're thinking as well, too, in that way. So it's interesting to figure that stuff out. If they don't feel, and I don't think they do, if they don't feel super, super solid with D Winters, then I think they make a call to CJ Mosley at the end of the draft.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point you bring up that I think we are going to see kind of play out, not necessarily with linebacker, it could be with any position, right? One that they didn't necessarily feel they addressed properly via the draft, or one that they didn't have that same urgency for as some of these other positions we've already mentioned. They could have those options of free agents that are available, of guys that maybe they could even trade for after the draft, and they can bring in to kind of fill the rest of those gaps on the team. So yeah, that's always an option for them, and that's where you get the cheapest deals as well, because it's guys that are still available after the draft, and we know the 49ers are on a budget right now. So that's probably the way that they go.
Yeah, they've only got $3 to spend. But yeah, I mean, that was just something that kind of just, bumped out to me. So you said it's defensive line, linebacker, 2A, 2B, and then what's your next on the power ranking list, Steph?
So here it could kind of be a toss up, like again, wide receiver, corner, or maybe even offensive line depth, because I do think they try to get offensive line depth every year as well. It's not one of those positions they address heavily in free agency as we've seen, but they like to get depth guys in, mostly with the offensive linemen. They like to get guys who could play multiple positions on the line. So it would not surprise me if they look at that in the draft. I mean, Miles Frazier, one of the guys that they're bringing in for a 30 visit, I think kind of indicates that he could play both guard spots. So they could address it day 2 or something like that. But we already talked about wide receiver. I don't think you can depend necessarily on Brandon Aiyuk being available week 1. You can't really bank on best case scenario rehab timeline. So I would address wide receiver, maybe after some of those other ones, corner as well. Just kind of some of those like secondary needs that could be in any sort of order from then on.
It'd be kind of cool, Steph, and this is just me thinking outside the box. I like to, critically think, put the pieces together. Why don't you just play Jacob Cowing? Like a lot. A lot.
I'm not saying that they don't and they won't experiment with that, but to the point I was saying earlier, like I think this team needs a specific role. And I guess like while Brandon Aiyuk is out, you do have Demarcus Robinson that I think could play that role. He's like
again
slightly better.
To my example, again, you have Jacob Cowing. You're not sold on him. I have the veteran Demarcus Robinson. That's what I'm talking about with D Winters and CJ Mosley.
And I think that's been our criticism of Kyle, right? That he doesn't like to take potential low floor players and put them out on the field. You have to kind of jump through these hoops, pass all his tests, get out of the doghouse, and kind of prove that you're going to be out there. And pretty much he wants you developed before you go out there, and he trusts you, being out there and getting a lot of reps and things like that. So you got to develop in practice, which is, I think, a hard task for players, especially, maybe someone like Jacob Cowing. And what's crazy about that, Jay, is like, I think in like preseason games, like when he's gotten action, we've seen him do some good things. Like, yes, he's made a couple of rookie mistakes as well, but which rookie hasn't, right? So
Ricky Pearsall didn't even know where to line up.
Exactly. So I think it's a little of like the roster politics thing. Hey, Ricky Pearsall was a first round pick, so like he's going to automatically get those reps.
Draft favoritism.
There was a lot of injuries, so I mean, we know where Jacob Cowing falls in the pecking order, and unfortunately, it'll be a little more buried unless, of course, he can show Kyle that he's earned those reps.
Yeah, and look, again, you like the young man. You drafted him, right? Like, you didn't draft somebody that you didn't like. It's got to be an effort. And here's the play that Rob's showing. Like, literally, that's the type of upside he has. Like if this pass is a little bit further ahead, that's a touchdown. Jacob Cowing has a chance to be the fastest receiver on his team, and he could play a multitude of spots. And he's a great route runner. We'll never know what's going on. We never will. But yes, the 49ers are going to draft another wide receiver, but it might be cool if, maybe you don't, and you go and you let the young man from Arizona hoop, because he is a good player and I believe in him. I think he's a very good wide receiver. I was very much on board with them drafting Jacob Cowing instead of Brendan Rice, because he's better than Brendan Rice. And that was what they did. Like, so for all that talk about like they don't care what I think, they obviously do. But yeah, just let the young man play. Like, let the young man play a little bit more. Again, struggles are fine as long as they're in the name of development. Mm-hmm. When veterans struggle and they drop the football and you keep throwing them out there is no development. So you want a veteran on the field for what? Because you feel safer. But when he's dropping footballs, when he's committing penalties, you leave him out there. But if it's in the name of development for a rookie, it's send him to the shadow realm. And that's the part I'll never understand. I'll never get that part. Chris Conley lines up somewhere, Ron drops a football. It's cool, Chris. We love you, man. Pat on the back. Get back out there. Jacob Cowan and Ricky Pearsall mess up a little bit. You know what? Go sit down. We're mad at you right now. Like, but that's part of development. I can deal with mistakes. I can deal with rookie mistakes from rookies or second-year players. I can't deal with rookie mistakes from veterans. And it's just in the name of you feeling very nice and warm and sleeping in your bed really nicely, as opposed to developing these rookies. I had to get that off about Jacob Cowan because we're talking about wide receivers. We're talking about signing wide receivers. And there's a pretty good, we got, everybody's like, oh, we want a difference maker in the draft. Well, Mom, we got a difference maker at home. It's like when you have McDonald's at the crib, right? It might not be the same, but it'll be cheaper and it's already at the house and we can make it, it might be better for you as well too. So that's all I'm going to say about that stuff. So guys, 50 minutes. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. Steph, thank you so much for your explanations on the top 30 visits. I think that was really helpful. I learned a lot. I didn't even know the rule about, a certain amount of miles doesn't count as a visit, towards the pro day. So I learned something today from Steph Sanchez. Like I told you, the smarter of the two hosts on this show as well. Thank you guys again for joining. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow Steph on Twitter at F49K, follow me on Twitter at Jason Aponte2103. Subscribe to both of our YouTube channels. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Steph has a bunch of her prospect interviews and everything as well on there too. You guys should tap in with that. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network, wherever you get your audio podcasts, and you're subscribed to the YouTube channel because there's a lot of great content with all of our great hosts as well. For Steph, for Jay, we're out of here.
Peace.